Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I will show you how to generate interior 2D elevation views for, your kitchens, bedrooms, master bathrooms, and pretty much any other interior space within your design. Now, you want to make sure to watch this video through to the end because I will be showing you how to turn these 2D elevations into 3D elevations. And of course, these would add an extra level of details to your drawing. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Now, if it's your first time on the channel, thank you for stopping by. And at any point, feel free to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to support the channel. If you actually learned something, feel free also to give this video a thumbs up, as it will help the video to reach more people or more viewers like yourself. Izimaze, respect. Now, before we jump into today's video, I want to remind all of you that I'm working on the AutoCAD Architecture course for beginners to intermediate level, and of course I think this will be the best AutoCAD architecture course on the internet when it launches, so take my word for it. If you want to sign up as an early bird so that you will be the first to know when this course goes live, then definitely click the link in the first comment or the pinned comment below and sign up for that. Anyway, so let's stop talking and get right into the video, shall we? Okay, so here we are in AutoCAD Architecture, and I will be using the 2023 version here. If you are already familiar with creating exterior elevations, then this process, majority of this process will be familiar to you. If you've never done this before, then you're at the right place. I do have videos that will teach you how to generate exterior elevations as well as sectional views in AutoCAD Architecture. So if you're interested in those videos, you can go ahead and watch those after this video. I'm going to drop those links in the description below. Now, as you will notice here, I have modeled a bunch of things in AutoCAD Architecture, and these are all 3D elements. So if I were to rotate this in a 3D model space, you will recognize that everything is in 3D. And so what happened is that we can extract views from this model. So we don't necessarily need to draw two-dimensional lines and elevations. So I do have a video also on how to add these objects within your model. If you specifically want to watch the video on how to add objects within your interior space, then I'll drop the link for that in the description below. All right. Also, one of the things that make this process easier is the space object, this guy right here. Now, this will eliminate a step in the process, whereas if you do not have a space object, then there's an extra step that you'll have to take, and I'll see if I'll be able to fit that within this video today. Since I have the space here already, I'll probably use it. We'll see how that works out. So if you want to know how to add spaces within your project, again, I do have another video on that. I'll drop the link below. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and show you what's going on. So from a plan view perspective, what we're going to do is to go over to annotate, and we will scroll all the way over to the callout drop down here. And of course, I didn't need to drop that down because the elevation drop down is right here. Once you click on this, you'll have a bunch of various elevations that we can choose from, and it all depends on what you're trying to do. So we do have the exterior elevations and we have the interior ones, and we have some single elevations. In this case, I'm going to use the one that has the 4 arrows, since I would like to generate an elevation view for every single wall in this room. Okay, what I'll do here is to go to my drop down and I'll click on either one of these here, and it's up to you to choose whether you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 or north, south, east, and west. I'll choose the 1, 2, 3, 4 for this video. Now, before we click on this, one of the first things you want to do, because this is an annotative object, and so whatever scale you have applied here will affect the size of this thing. So I would suggest that you set your scale and you determine your scale based on what you think you will print this drawing at. So I want to make sure that I set my scale at that scale, and then I go ahead and apply my elevation. So I click on it and we're going to place our tag anywhere in an open space, maybe like right here. And I'm going to click, and the first thing you need to do is to pick the direction for your first arrow. And so, I usually just pick the north. You want to make sure that you turn your ortho mode on for this, because you don't want your arrows to be pointing in a weird direction. So let's turn that on, and I'm going to pick the north, and I'm going to place this elevation within this current drawing. If we were in a project environment, then these two would become available, but of course we're not. This is just a one-off drawing that we're working on. So I'm going to rename this to be kitchen elevation, and scale looks good, pretty much the same as we have here. And we want to say current drawing. And here it says we need to select the space. So this is where the space object becomes helpful. If we did not have a space object, then you would hit enter and draw a rectangle around the space that you want. I don't have to do that because I already have a space. And so what we'll do is to click on the space object, and it will calculate all the sections that we need to get. And so right here, we can see that it is starting to draw all the interior sections that we will need for this space. All right, so the further out you pull your mouse, you notice that it shrinks in the middle there, and the closer you move it to the boundary of the wall, the closer to the wall the section line gets. All right, so I think you can just put it somewhere that you're comfortable with, and I think maybe like here is good enough. So I'm going to click right there, and so it went ahead and draw all the section lines in. And then I need to specify out here where I want to place those generated elevation views. So I'm going to click my first point here and my second point to determine the space between each elevation view, because they're going to be 4. So I'm going to say, all right, give me this amount of space between. So as you can see here, it pulled out a pretty accurate elevation view of exactly what's happening inside of the kitchen for all 4 walls. And so this is how easy it is to generate elevation views for interior space. Okay, now of course we can go ahead and manipulate these section lines. Let's say, for instance, I would like for this section line to move back a little bit so that it captures a little bit of the stove. I could move this back to here. I could also move this one here back to cut through the center of that sink there, or maybe a little bit further to this section here. So let's move this back, and so on and so forth. Once we move things, we can go back to these views and we can highlight and refresh. And these views would update to show you the new part or feature that you would have included within them. Now, of course, we can make changes to the model. We can add things or remove things or stuff like that and refresh our views, and it would include those objects within the view. These 4 lines will not be printed on your sheets, so you don't have to worry about them cluttering your drawing because they're on a layer by themselves that does not print. Okay, they're just there for the purpose of generating these views. Now, as you drag these views to sheets, these markers would automatically be populated, and I have videos on that showing you how to do that already, so I won't even be going through that in this video. So that is how we generate 2D elevation views. One of the things I would like to include in this elevation view, or in all of these, would be the floor slab as well as the ceiling, or maybe not. I could leave the ceiling off, but I would like to include the floor slab and maybe the wall on each side of the room. Usually you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it just to show you how to manipulate these sections. Now, if I were to rotate this in a 3D view, you'll notice that these section lines are really and truly a box. And so whatever is in each box is what is represented here in these 2D views. So what we can do in order to capture the slab below is to move this box down to capture the slab. So what I'm going to do is to select all of these boxes, and we're going to move the elevation down -6 inches just to capture the slab. And the height is already 8 foot 6 inches, and I'm fine with that. I think that's okay, unless you think I should raise this up to include the ceiling. Let's say we move this up to 9 feet. So now that's high enough to, I think, capture the ceiling. Let's see. All right, so the ceiling is exactly at 9 feet, so we probably could raise this up a little bit higher, maybe to 9 feet 6. Okay. So that would capture the ceiling. And once we do that, if we go back to a 2D view and refresh these guys here, you will see that it is now including the slab and the ceiling above, if that is something you want to see. Also, if you want to see the walls, for example, we could just widen these out to capture walls. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and widen these out. Now, you don't have to do this. Generally, you don't do this when you're doing interior elevations, but I'm just doing it for the fun here at this time. So, of course, you can see that the walls are now included within this elevation view. Being that the wall has so many detail, it actually brings all of that details in, including the window. And, you know, all of these details are being shown within your drawing. Okay, so that's where I think it ends for the 2D aspect of these elevation views. Now the 3D aspect is just as easy as this, and so what I'm going to do is to show you how to do one, maybe like this one, since this one has more details on this side here. So I'm going to pull this view here that is capturing this side of the kitchen, and we're going to generate another view from this same section line. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is to click on generate, and instead of creating another one like this, what we're going to do is to click on the dialog box right here. And so we now have the option to choose between 2D and 3D. Okay, so of course I'm going to switch to 3D. And if you watched my video on display manager, you would know what these are. And so we're going to scroll up and select model high detail, since we want to see everything in high detail. And then what we're going to do is to create a new object, and I'm going to pick where I want to place this object. So I'm going to pick a point, maybe like somewhere below this one, like that, and I'm going to hit OK. Now before we hit OK, right here it says selection set, and it already selects 14 items for us because it thinks it needs to include 14 items. I'm fine with that. Generally, it would pick up all the elements that it needs to collect. However, sometimes it doesn't, and also sometimes it includes items that you don't want. So there are times when you would need to actually click on this button and select objects that you actually want, or vice versa. Okay, so we're going to hit OK, and so it generates this little section here that we can pretty much look at. I'm going to put this in a conceptual. So it generates this little view here that we can pretty much throw on a sheet. And the cool thing about it is that if I make changes over here, it would update within this view here. So for instance, let's go ahead and I'm going to select these, and I'm going to say select all. I'm going to lower this back down to 8 feet 6 inches, and I'm going to refresh or regenerate. When you go to regenerate, make sure you select replace existing, because what that's going to do is to replace the existing one. Hit OK. And so it cuts away that ceiling. Now, one of the things you also want to do is to make sure that you refresh these guys here, because You want these to reflect the same thing as these, or maybe you don't. It's up to you guys to mess around and make it what you want. And so now I can place this view on a sheet just like this, or maybe I want to look at it from this view, maybe from another angle. I can go perspective if I want. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. Now, if you notice here, it included this little thing here. I wish it had enough sense to not include that, but it doesn't. So what I would have to do here is to go back, click on this guy, regenerate, and this time I want to select the objects myself. So I'm going to click on that. As you can see, it already selects them for you. So all I got to do is to deselect some objects, which would be all of these guys right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and deselect all of these. All right, so that looks like it. I'm going to hit enter and the number dropped to 8. That's fine. I'm going to hit OK. And now those are gone. So we could do that to the ceiling as well. You know, we could go in and say, all right, deselect the ceiling in order to not see it within this. For instance, if I want to get rid of this wall here, I could pretty much do the same thing by just clicking on here, regenerate, select objects, and then I would just deselect this wall here and hit enter. Okay. And now that wall would go away. So now I have something that looks like this, to where I can see even more information on this side of the building. Okay. I think there was one other thing that I wanted to show you. So this design here included this particular kitchen design, but I did do another design that I'm going to bring in for you guys. So I'm going to unload that design and I'm going to upload or reload the other design that has a lot more detail. A lot of these components I pulled in from SketchUp, and so, you know, this little table here that has a little bit more detail on it, I brought this person in. I put a little chandelier, whatever, lamp in the top there, a hood over the stove, and some extra stuff in there that I think would be cool to show you guys that, you know, anything that you model in this space will be captured once it is done in detail and in a 3D view or 3D environment. Okay, so if I go ahead and I refresh these here, all right, immediately you will see that the faucet has changed. You know, a couple of other items were added. The garbage bin is now underneath this here, and we do have a dishwasher and stuff like that. You can see the hood. Looking from this view, you can see the table with all the detail and the clock. And this view, you can now see the person here with that lamp hanging down and so on and so forth. And this is that hero shot with looking directly onto the stove and the hood going up in the ceiling. Of course, we can do the same here. We can regenerate this guy here to show everything we want. Just say okay. And if we go to a 3D view and take a look at this conceptual, this is what we have. And so you can again throw this onto a sheet, print it out, and you would get exactly what you want. At the end of manipulating your views, you would end up with something that looks like this when placed on a sheet. So I kind of just threw this together to where we have a plan view that shows the arrow pointing in that direction, and then this would be the 2D elevation of that. You know, throw a couple dimensions in there and all of that. Of course, you can make changes to your line weight. Right now, I don't think I have the best line weight, especially for the size sheet that we're printing on. We do have that 3D view here, and I was also able to throw this perspective view in, and this is simply coming from a camera view. So what I did was to place a camera in the corner of this room right here. Okay, so once you place a camera in here, you can make the necessary adjustments to the camera over here just to get the perfect shot. And so I thought this was a good shot right here. And so on the sheet, what I did was to go inside of that viewport and make sure to change your view to that camera. Okay, Now, once you change it to the camera, you're good to go, and you would go ahead and print it out to get it to look like this. Okay, so that's pretty much how this is done. All right, so that's where we'll stop for today. If you learned something, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this one if you haven't done so already. If you're interested in seeing how I go about printing these 3D views to make them look as beautiful as they do in this video, then you definitely want to watch this video right here. Click on that. And lastly, remember guys, to sign up as an early bird to my upcoming AutoCAD Architecture online course in the pinned comment below. Last but not least, shout out, big up to the patrons on my Patreon page, YouTube members. Thank you all for your support, and thank you all for watching this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. I'm sleepy, I'm tired. But my eyes them pop out of my head right now. But you have to do what you have to do. The grind is on. You see what I say?